the cold, damp breath that smelled of rotting leaves and wet earth. It was Thanksgiving night, but the warmth of the farmhouse kitchen felt miles away from the porch where Leo stood. The porch light was a sickly yellow orb, struggling to pierce the gray curtain that had swallowed the old red barn and the towering silos. Leo clutched his coat tighter, his fingers numb. Inside, the muffled sounds of laughter and the clinking of silverware against tore all the typo, buried to prize he had in contributions. The golem raised a hand. It came from the air itself, sounding exactly like his older brother. Caleb. Caleb was in Nide meaning Terrace. Caleb was in Fending. You could see him through the window, laughing at a joke their uncle had togus. That could release carries of their 6. He leaned his back against the wood, gasping for air. The warmth of the room, usually so comforting with its sense of cinnamon and roasted sage, now felt suffocating. His family sat around the long wood table, their faces glowing in the candlelight. There was his father, carving the last of the bird, his mother pouring coffee, and Caleb leaning back in his chair with a satisfied smirk. Everything looked normal, but Leo could still hear that dry, rasping sound through the walls. "You look like you saw a ghost, kiddo," his father said, wiping his hands on a napkin. "The fog getting to you, come and change. The column tiny chain you walks into her really things in her photos of the coffee and his word. And is really enjoying the came as a little Kai, like that. No. Leo lied again, his voice cracking. But the golem didn't try to break the door, and it had slipped from his hands, shattering the crystal and snapping the delicate gears. Afraid of Caleb's temper and his voice stead, the plain fours would more than plains and the pine off. In the Philtwell building and tried to break the door. Instead it began to speak again, its voice a cacophony of their crying for man. Till its shadow draped over the entire roof. It sounded like 1,000 dry leaves screaming in unison. The golem began to circle the house, its heavy footfalls creating a perimeter of dread. Leo's mother huddled near the hearth, her eyes wide. "We have to do something," she whispered. "It's not going away. It's waiting for us to break. I'll go out there," Caleb said suddenly, his bravado returning in a surge of desperate adrenaline. He gripped a flashlight when flames erupted from the soil, weaving themselves across the doorway in a matter of seconds. The house was being sealed. The golem had taken its first prize, and it wasn't finished. Leo watched through the gaps in the vines as his brother was pulled toward the dark mouth of the cornfield, his legs trailing in the dirt. The golem didn't look like a monster now. It looked like a force of nature, an inevitable harvest of the soul, hating at them with the fireplace poker, but the plants were like iron. Every time he managed to sever a branch, 2 more grew in its place, dripping a dark, sap-like liquid that smelled of bitter almonds. His mother was weeping, her hands pressed against the window. "We have to save him. Leo, please, if you know what that thing wants, tell us you came at this cost for the skullman." And Hodenarting flagged her small paring knife from the counter, not to fight the golem, but to cut his way out. He climbed onto the sill and kicked at the glass. It shattered, the shards falling like diamonds into the dark. He wiggled through the opening, the jagged edges of the frame catching on his coat, and dropped into the damp mud below. The air outside was freezing, and the fog was so thick he could barely see his own hands. He could hear the golem ahead of him, the shh of its body, moving through the corn stubble. He followed the sound as boots squalling the days, what they percolum millicage, and they helping me make out a craushik, and they hadn't. The golem loomed over him, a mountain of dead vegetation and ancient malice. Caleb groaned, struggling against the vine grip, but the more he moved, the tighter the golem held him. The golem with a soft golden light. It was beautiful and terrible, a knot of life and ancient magic. The creature held the heart out toward Leo, its hollow eyes now filled with that warm, amber glow. Hal looked at the watchman and at his brother into gray dust, blowing away on the light breeze. As they approached the porch, the front door flew open, and their parents rushed out, their faces pale with relief. There were tears and frantic hugs, and for a long time, no one said anything at all. They just stood there in the yellow glow of the porch light, a family made whole again, the Zumming train. The harvest wasn't just about what you took from the land. It was about what you kept in your heart. As they began to clear the table, Leo felt a strange warmth in his pocket. He reached in and pulled out a single small seed, perfectly round and glowing with a faint amber light. It was a gift from the golem, a reminder of the night the harvest came for the truth. He smiled and tucked it back away.